Dr. Elena Vasquez pressed her palm against the reinforced glass, watching the last pack of shadow cats pace restlessly in their enclosure. These magnificent creatures, standing 8 feet tall with obsidian fur that seemed to absorb light itself, had once ruled the northern wilderness before the great expansion drove them to near extinction. Their amber eyes, intelligent and ancient, held a wariness that cut straight to Elena's heart. "The board's decision is final," Marcus Chen announced from behind her, his corporate suit a stark contrast to the wild beauty beyond the glass. "Apex Sanctuary will be demolished next month. The land's too valuable for urban development." Elena turned to face the board representative, her weathered hands clenched into fists. At 52, she had dedicated her entire career to protecting Earth's most dangerous predators, understanding that their survival was intrinsically linked to humanity's own future. "These aren't just animals, Marcus. The shadow cats, the crimson bears, the thunder wolves, they're the last guardians of ecosystems we barely understand." "Guardians," Marcus scoffed, pulling up holographic data on his tablet. "They're killers. 3 attacks this year alone. The public won't tolerate those. Attacks happened because we destroyed their hunting grounds." Elena's voice echoed through the observation deck. "We forced them into human settlements, then act surprised when they follow their instincts." Through the transparent barrier, the alpha shadow cat, a magnificent female Elena had named Nyx, suddenly stopped pacing. The creature's head tilted, golden eyes fixed on Elena with an intensity that made her breath catch. In that moment, she felt something she'd experienced only a handful of times in her decades of work, a connection that transcended species barriers. Marcus continued his corporate rhetoric, but Elena barely heard him. Nyx approached the glass, massive paws silent on the ground. The predator's reflection merged with Elena's own, creating a haunting duality, human and beast, protector and protected, 2 species standing at the precipice of understanding or destruction. "The evacuation begins tomorrow," Marcus concluded, snapping his tablet shut. "All animals will be relocated to other facilities or—" He didn't finish the sentence, but Elena understood. Most of these creatures were too dangerous, too expensive, too inconvenient for other sanctuaries. They would be euthanized in the name of progress. As Marcus departed, Elena remained with Nyx. The shadow cat's breath fogged the glass, and Elena placed her palm where the creature's paw touched the barrier. "I won't let them destroy you," she whispered. "There has to be another way." Unknown to both human and predator, seismic sensors deep beneath the sanctuary began registering unusual activity. Something vast and ancient was stirring in the Earth's crust, drawn by vibrations that had nothing to do with tectonic movement and everything to do with the desperate emotional resonance between species on the brink of permanent separation. The first tremor hit at sunset, gentle enough to dismiss as a minor earthquake, but Elena noticed how every predator in the sanctuary suddenly went silent, their heads turned toward the eastern mountains. They sensed what the instruments couldn't yet measure. Change was coming, and with it, a test that would determine whether humanity deserved the trust of those they had spent centuries hunting. The second tremor shattered Elena's morning coffee cup, sending hot liquid across the sanctuary's emergency response maps. Outside, the crimson bears stood motionless in their habitat, massive heads raised toward the Cascade Mountains, where an unnatural golden glow emanated from the peaks. These 1,000-pound predators, usually aggressive and territorial, displayed behavior Elena had never witnessed. They were afraid. "Seismic activity is off the charts," called out Dr. James Okafor, the sanctuary's lead scientist, his dark skin glistening with nervous sweat as he monitored multiple screens. "But this isn't geological. The patterns are too rhythmic, too intentional." Elena strapped on her emergency gear, muscle memory from decades of crisis management kicking in. At her side, Miguel Santos, the sanctuary's head of security, checked his tranquilizer rifle with practiced efficiency. His scarred hands, souvenirs from a Thunderwolf encounter 5 years prior, moved with steady precision, despite the growing chaos. "Ma'am, we've got reports coming in from across the valley," Miguel said, his voice tight with controlled tension. "Every predator species is exhibiting the same behavior. Complete stillness, all facing east, even the wild ones." The third tremor brought sound, a low, harmonic resonance that seemed to originate from deep within the earth itself. Elena felt it in her bones, a frequency that spoke to something primal and ancient. Around the sanctuary, the imprisoned predators began to respond, their voices joining in what could only be described as a song. Sarah Kim, the young veterinarian who had joined them 6 months ago, burst into the command center, her usually immaculate appearance disheveled. "Dr. Vasquez, you need to see this. The animals, they're not agitated anymore. They're waiting." Eleanor followed Sarah to the central observation deck, where windows provided views of all major habitats. The sight that greeted her defied every principle of animal behavior she had studied. Shadowcats sat in perfect formation. Crimson bears had ceased their eternal pacing. Thunderwolves, notorious for their pack aggression, lay calmly side by side. All faced the mountains, where the golden glow now pulsed in rhythm with the Earth's mysterious song. "Satellite imagery shows similar gatherings worldwide," James reported, his scientific excitement barely contained. "Every apex predator species, gathering in formation, all facing toward significant geological features. It's like they're responding to some kind of summons." Elena's radio crackled to life. "Sanctuary Base, this is Valley Command. We've got reports of mass predator migrations. Every wolf pack, bear family, and big cat in the region is moving toward your location. ETA approximately 6 hours." The implications struck Elena like a physical blow. If hundreds of wild predators converged on the sanctuary while the contained ones were already in this strange state, the result could be catastrophic, or it could be something unprecedented. A gathering not seen since humanity first began driving these species toward extinction. Miguel stepped beside her, his weathered face etched with concern. "Elena, if the wild packs are really coming here, we need to evacuate. My security team can't protect against that many." "No." Elena's voice carried absolute certainty. "We stay. Whatever's happening, it started here, with our connection to them. Running now would break something that might never be repaired." As if responding to her words, Nyx approached the glass wall once more. The Shadowcat's amber eyes held intelligence, urgency, and something Elena had never seen before in a predator's gaze, hope. The creature placed both massive paws against the barrier and threw back her head, releasing a call that harmonized perfectly with the Earth's growing song. The mountain's glow intensified, and Elena understood with crystal clarity that humanity was about to face a test that would determine the future of both species. The golden light erupting from the Cascade Mountains painted the pre-dawn sky in shades Elena had never seen before, colors that seemed to exist beyond the normal spectrum. As the first wild predators emerged from the forest, a pack of thunderwolves moving with impossible coordination, she realized they weren't approaching as hunters, but as pilgrims. Movement sensors are detecting over 300 large predators. "Converging on our position," James announced, his voice a mixture of terror and scientific fascination. "Wolves, bears, mountain lions, even species that haven't been seen in this region for decades." Elena stood on the sanctuary's main observation platform, surrounded by her small team. Miguel had positioned his security personnel at strategic points, but she had ordered them to load only tranquilizers, not lethal rounds. Something in her gut insisted that violence would shatter whatever delicate moment was unfolding. "Dr. Vasquez," Sarah whispered, pointing toward the eastern perimeter. "Look." An ancient grizzly, easily 9 feet tall and scarred from decades of survival, emerged from the tree line. Behind him came creatures that shouldn't exist together in nature: wolf packs and solitary cats, territorial bears sharing space without aggression. They arranged themselves in expanding circles around the sanctuary, creating a living amphitheater of predators. "It's impossible," James breathed. "These species should be attacking each other, establishing territory, hunting. Instead, they're organizing." The contained predators within the sanctuary responded to their wild counterparts' arrival. Nyx and her pack moved to the easternmost wall of their enclosure, pressing against the barrier that separated them from freedom. The crimson bears stood on their hind legs, massive forms silhouetted against the supernatural dawn. Every creature faced the mountains, where the golden glow now pulsed like a planetary heartbeat. Elena felt the pull herself, a resonance in her chest that seemed to synchronize with her own heartbeat. Without conscious decision, she found herself walking toward the main exit, her team following with a mixture of protest and curiosity. "Elena, you can't go out there," Miguel said, catching her arm. 300 predators, maybe more. It's suicide." She turned to face her friend, seeing the fear in his dark eyes, but also trust. Trust built over years of shared dedication to these magnificent creatures. "Miguel, when have you ever seen behavior like this? They're not here to hunt. They're here for something else entirely." "But what?" Sarah asked, her young face pale but determined. Before Elena could answer, the Earth's harmonic song reached a crescendo. The mountain's peak split open like a blooming flower, revealing something that challenged every assumption about life on Earth. A crystalline structure emerged, ancient beyond measure, its faceted surface pulsing with the same golden light that had drawn the predators. "Xenoarchaeological sensors are going crazy," James reported, his scientific training warring with the impossibility before his eyes. "That structure is emitting energy signatures that don't match any known technology. It's like it's been dormant for millennia, waiting for the right trigger." The wild predators began to move, not toward the humans, but in a complex pattern around the sanctuary. Their movements created intricate geometric forms, visible from Elena's elevated position, spirals and interlocking circles that seemed to channel the crystal's energy. The contained predators responded by pressing harder against their barriers, not with aggression, but with desperate urgency. "They want out," Elena realized aloud. "Not to hunt or kill, but to join whatever's happening. They're part of this, have always been part of this." Her hand moved to the master release controls. For all enclosures, a system designed for extreme emergencies. Miguel's hand closed over hers, not to stop her, but to share the weight of the decision. "If we're wrong," he said quietly. "If we're wrong, we die," Elena replied. "But if we're right, we might witness the beginning of something that could save both our species." The crystal's pulse intensified, and Elena felt the presence of something vast and ancient touching her mind. Not threatening, but questioning. "Are you ready to trust?" it seemed to ask. "Are you ready to be trusted?" Her finger hovered over the release button as 300 pairs of predator eyes turned toward her, waiting. Elena's finger trembled over the emergency release as the crystal's energy washed over the sanctuary in waves of golden light. Each pulse brought whispers, not words, but concepts that flowed directly into her consciousness. Images of Earth as it once was. Vast forests where humans and predators existed in careful balance, neither dominating the other, both serving as guardians of the living world. "Elena, don't!" Miguel pleaded, but his voice lacked conviction. He could feel the rightness of what was about to happen, the sense that this moment had been building for millennia. The wild predators had completed their geometric formation, creating a perfect spiral that seemed to channel the crystal's energy directly toward the sanctuary. Within the pattern, Elena could see species that had been declared extinct. Dire wolves, larger than any living today, cave bears that dwarfed their modern descendants, great cats with saber teeth gleaming in the supernatural light. Somehow, impossibly, they had survived in hidden places waiting for this awakening. "The energy signatures," James called out, his voice filled with wonder rather than fear. "It's not just from the crystal. Every predator out there is generating a bioelectric field. They're forming some kind of living circuit, and our contained animals are meant to complete it." Sarah stepped beside Elena, her young hand resting on the control panel. "I've been studying their behavior patterns for months," she said softly. "They're not animals anymore, not just animals. They're evolving, becoming something new, and they want us to evolve with them." Through the facility's speakers, Elena activated the general comm system. Her voice echoed across the sanctuary and into the valley beyond, where news crews and military units were undoubtedly gathering. "This is Dr. Elena Vasquez at Apex Sanctuary. We are about to make contact with an intelligence that has existed alongside humanity since the beginning. What happens next will determine whether our species survive the next century together or perish separately." She pressed the release. The barriers dissolved with a soft hum, and for a heartbeat, the world held its breath. Then Nyx stepped forward, her massive form moving with liquid grace. The shadow cat approached Elena directly, amber eyes locked on the human's face. Behind her, crimson bears emerged from their enclosure, thunder wolves padding silently into the open air. Elena knelt, extending her hand palm up toward Nyx. The predator sniffed once, then pressed her great head against Elena's palm. The contact sent electricity through Elena's entire body, not painful but transformative. Images flooded her mind. The crystal as it truly was, a beacon left by an ancient civilization that had achieved perfect balance between intelligence and instinct, technology and nature. "We were the guardians once," Elena whispered, understanding, flooding through her. "Before cities, before industry, humans and predators worked together to maintain the balance. The crystal has been waiting for us to remember." Miguel approached slowly, his scarred hands extended toward a massive crimson bear. The creature, Titan, Elena's mind supplied, though she had never named him, lowered his great head for Miguel to touch. James followed, then Sarah, each human, forming a connection with one of the great predators. As the bonds formed, the crystal's light intensified, and Elena felt her consciousness expanding. She was still herself, but also more, connected to Nyx's primal wisdom, to the bear's ancient strength, to the wolf's pack loyalty. Around them, the wild predators began to move in perfect harmony with their newly freed sanctuary mates, creating patterns of impossible beauty. "The governments will never accept this," Miguel said, though his voice carried wonder rather than fear. "Humans working alongside apex predators, sharing consciousness. They'll call it contamination, mutation." "Then we show them its evolution," Elena replied, feeling Nyx's agreement echo in her mind. "We prove that cooperation creates something greater than domination ever could." The crystal pulsed once more, and Elena understood the next phase. The predators weren't just gathering here, they were preparing to return to their natural territories. But not as they had been. They would go back as ambassadors, as teachers, carrying the crystal's gift of connection to humans who were ready to listen. The age of hunting each other was ending. The age of hunting together for a better world was about to begin. 6 months after the awakening, Elena stood on the observation deck of what was now called the Unity Research Station, watching Nyx lead a mixed pack of shadow cats and human researchers through the morning forest. The sight still amazed her. Humans and predators moving together, hunting not for prey, but for solutions to environmental disasters that had seemed insurmountable just a year ago. The soil restoration in Sector 7 is ahead of schedule, reported Dr. Kenji Tanaka, the first of many scientists who had joined their project after witnessing the impossible partnership between human and predator intelligence. His neural link with a family of thunderwolves had revolutionized their understanding of ecosystem recovery. The wolves' instinctual knowledge of plant and mineral relationships, combined with human analytical capabilities, is producing results we never imagined. Possible! Elena nodded, feeling Nix's contentment through their shared bond, as the Shadowcat detected the return of songbirds to areas that had been ecological dead zones for decades. The connection didn't diminish either species' individuality. Rather, it enhanced their unique strengths while bridging the gap between instinct and intellect. Government delegation arriving in 20 minutes, Miguel announced over the comm system. His role had evolved from security chief to diplomatic liaison, his bear partner, Titan, serving as an intimidating but surprisingly effective presence during negotiations with skeptical officials. Elena smiled, remembering the panic that had initially gripped world governments when footage of the awakening spread globally. Military forces had surrounded the sanctuary within hours, prepared to contain what they perceived as a dangerous mutation or alien influence. It had taken weeks of careful demonstration to prove that the human-predator partnerships posed no threat to those who approached with respect rather than fear. The breakthrough had come when a child, 8-year-old Maria Santos, whose parents worked at a wildlife preserve in Costa Rica, had wandered into a gathering of linked jaguars and researchers. Instead of attacking, the great cats had gently guided her to safety, their human partners explaining later that the child's innocent trust had resonated through their shared consciousness like a bell of pure clarity. Sarah's team reports successful integration in the Australian sector, James called out, his excitement evident even through the comlink. The young veterinarian now led the expansion project, traveling to regions where other predator species were beginning to exhibit signs of readiness for the awakening. The Tasmanian tigers that emerged from their hidden sanctuary yesterday have successfully bonded with the Aboriginal research team. They're sharing ancestral knowledge about land management that colonization nearly destroyed. Elena watched through the panoramic windows as representatives from 12 nations approached the facility, their motorcade flanked not by military escorts, but by wolves and their human partners. A security arrangement that had proven far more effective than any technology. Predators could sense hostile intentions with an accuracy no surveillance system could match. "Dr. Vasquez," came a familiar voice from behind her. She turned to see Dr. Amanda Foster, the former skeptic who now served as the UN's liaison for interspecies cooperation initiatives. Amanda's own partner, a magnificent golden eagle named Apollo, perched on a specially designed shoulder mount, his keen eyes constantly scanning for potential threats to their shared mission. "The proposal has been approved," Amanda continued, her formal demeanor unable to hide her excitement. "The Global Sanctuary Network will receive full funding and governmental support. Every nation wants what we've achieved here. The restoration of devastated ecosystems, the prediction and prevention of natural disasters, the healing of the planet itself." Eleanor felt a deep purr of satisfaction from Nix, who had returned from the morning patrol and now sat beside her human partner. The Shadowcat's presence radiated contentment, not the passive satisfaction of a well-fed predator, but the profound fulfillment of a creature whose existence had found its true purpose. "There's something else," Amanda added, her voice dropping to an awed whisper. "The crystal has begun communicating with similar structures on other continents, We're not the only world this ancient civilization tried to help. The network they left behind, it spans the galaxy. Elena pressed her palm against the window, watching as human children played safely in the forest alongside young predators, both species learning from each other in ways that would have seemed impossible before the awakening. The future stretched ahead of them, filled with challenges, but also with the certainty that humanity would never again face them alone. The day the predators trusted humanity had become the day humanity remembered how to be worthy of that trust. And it was only the beginning.